Don't you think it's time for the city of Savannah to have an honest tourism management plan? Let SCAD start paying its fair share? And the hospitality industry needs to increase its wages? The impacts of new growth should not cost residents. All local elected officials on council and commission should have term limits. We're working hard to accomplish these policies. We need your help. Please contribute whatever you can, $5, $10, or $20, by going to bettersavannah.org. Donate. Thank you.
I appreciate our tourism community. I appreciate our hoteliers.
The following show and broadcast is a production of Better Savannah, an independent expenditure committee dedicated to better policy outcomes at the state and local level. The views, opinions, and statements made by the hosts and/or their guests do not necessarily reflect the views of Better Savannah.
Good evening, Mr. Bryan. How you doing, Archie?
I'm doing good. How's it going for you? You got a new scenery there.
Well, I just kind of shifted. I get a little bit of natural light coming into the background.
And I'm not in the car for a chance.
I was going to say, it's nice to see you not in a car this week,
right,
like the last time we were on. We skipped last week because it was the first night of the January 6th primetime hearings. Last Thursday, there was 20 million people that watched it. I said, even Van Johnson can't compete with that audience. I mean, but
that was interesting. Did you catch the viewing today at 1:00?
I saw the news headlines. A lot of Georgia connections in the hearings. What did we miss in the 1:00?
Well, I didn't catch it. I forgot what I was doing, but I'll tell you one thing. They're definitely backing him into a corner. So it'll be interesting to see how this thing turns out for him.
Well, it's Thursday, June 16th. Believe it or not, it's episode number 89 of the Better Savannah podcast. John continues a summer vacation on the West Coast. I think he's up close and personal near the Chaz Zone in Portland, Oregon today. So, I'm sure he'll send us a comment or two at some point in the show. But if you're back home here in the coastal Georgia area, you know that we have runoffs coming up this upcoming Tuesday. Most of the local ballots were decided in the first round, but a lot of the statewide runoffs have not been. You've seen at the statewide level, Stacey Abrams has endorsed in all of the statewide races at this point, I believe. And so, we've got a Charlie Bailey endorsement for lieutenant governor. We've got B. Wynn endorsement for secretary of state. We've got William Bodie for labor. I don't know if she endorsed in the health, insurance commissioner's race yet, but I do believe that these are those first three. So we kind of see the stakes being set for the Democratic Party statewide runoff. But locally here in Savannah, we've got runoffs here for Recorder's Court. Joe Huffman is who most of us that I know of are supporting. Is that
right?
Who you're voting
I agree.
for?
Yeah. And I'm over in District 5. I'm sure District 5, at least I'm asking District 5. Let's support Joe Huffman.
Yeah. So
I got a segue there for you, didn't I?
I didn't know that. I appreciate that segue because the main race in town, besides the congressional district runoff, is in the 5th district. And being a longtime 5th district resident yourself, RG, I was excited to have you on as a co-host for this episode. And I just want to give everybody, here's my statement of being fair. I reached out to Paul Smith, Theresa Watson's opponent, multiple times in the last couple of weeks. Never got any attempted, return connection. So, I'm not going to do another show between now and Tuesday, but, I did try to reach out to both of the contestants. Compared to the guy who finished in third place, the third place finisher in this race in the first round, certainly seemed on the campaign trail a much more reasonable person, but clearly not, reasonable enough to kind of come on, these type of shows and garner votes and defend themselves, So without further ado, I want to welcome in our guest. It's candidate for the 5th District School Board seat. It's her second time running for the seat. It's Theresa Watson. She's the head of the Savannah Federation of Teachers, longtime labor activist. Thanks for stopping by, Theresa.
Thank you for having me.
No problem. Thanks for coming on the show. Tell our viewing and listening audience, because a lot of people will watch this and listen to it later on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and on the podcast apps. Just tell everybody a little bit about yourself, that they may not know why you're running again this time, and a little bit about how the race has developed so far.
So my name is Theresa Watson. Hello, Savannah, and Savannah. I am definitely the candidate for the 5th District School Board representative seat. This is my second time running. I ran back in 2018. Didn't quite get to the point where I wanted to be, but now I'm back again, pursuing that seat again. I have 20 plus years of educational experience working with the school district. My last position there was a job coach working in the special ed department, which that is my passion. I love that population. Doesn't matter from the small kids to the older children. I love special ed. I'm also have a bachelor's degree in child development. I'm currently seeking a master's degree, which I will be finished, thank you, Lord, in September with my master's degree in special ed. So as you can see by hearing, working in the school system, my passion for working with that population of special ed, you see that I'm all the way around education. I also want everyone to know something, that I am currently president of Savannah Federation of Teachers. I have been president. It's an elected position. I was elected by my peers. I'm a dues paying member. I pay my dues every month. Also, being in that position, as I said, I'm elected by my peers. I've been doing that since 2012. So with having the experience of working in education in Chatham County and being president, I have worked on both ends of the spectrum. I understand what it is to work in a school. I understand what it is to work with administrators of how to help people who are already working in the school. So I call myself the link between the two, where I say sometimes I put out little fires here and there, but sometimes it doesn't work always in the best interest of the employee, and maybe vice versa. So that's in a nutshell who I am and why I wanted to run for this position. I love serving. I have a passion to want to make a pathway of right for all. I'm in the community. I'm very working in the community, working with parents, working with my community out here in the lakes of Cottonville, where I have shared information of how parents can advocate for their children who may be not knowing their rights as a parent, or what they can expect or what they need to do in order to make things happen for their children. So um, that's my passion. I wanted to be a person that brings a change to the fifth district. I don't believe our incumbent has done that. I tried that 4 years ago, and now I'm back again. Even though she is retiring and giving up the seat, I want to make sure that the fifth district is up to date with relevant information, so that they can know what's actually going on in the school system.
Let me start there. Let me start there with you, because this is probably one of the most fascinating stories about Chatham County politics in the last decade, in my opinion. So 4 years ago, you ran against the incumbent, Irene Hines.
Mm-hmm.
You garnered more than a third of the district vote. She's a long-time incumbent. And the superintendent of the schools actually donated to her campaign
Yes,
it was a very big controversy. I guess I'm just wondering, 4 years later, now that you look back and you're in a race for an open seat now, what that type of resistance to change from the old guard, seeing that up close and personal, where do you see? Do you see that the old guard's grip is slipping now? Is that something you feel, or just sort of tell me a little bit more about this evolution in the last 4 years from your first run to now?
Well, the incumbent is backing my opponent. And she has let that been known in the press conference when he did his announcement, as well as when I was at a neighborhood association meeting where she currently lives and he currently lives, to do my introduction to the community. She made it known then. And so, with that being said, knowing that she's backing him, she's pushing all effort to make sure that he is the person in that position. When it comes to him not having what I have, not having the connection already, he's being spoon fed information of saying the right thing, but he does not have the he does not have the experience, so to speak, to say that he is the rightful person in that seat. If for him to run, he hasn't stepped in a classroom. I have. He doesn't know the key players and how to find out information. It's being spoon fed to him. Doesn't know what it takes to make a decision as to what would works best for children, because he's never had that experience. He's claimed that he has higher up experience, but when I'm reading, or his track record doesn't prove that. I have had every experience when it comes to working with pre-K all the way up to 12th grade. So he doesn't have that experience.
Right. If I may, Chuck, two things out of why this particular race is important to me. One, I live in the district, but I have a mother who taught she taught kindergarten, first grade for 30 years. So when you talk about passion, I get that. And she just loved childhood development. But also I see Pastor Jones on here from the fifth district. We have Dr. Pat Harris, a number of people who lead the coalition and very involved in our area. But I'll start with this question, if I would, Theresa, specific to our children in the fifth district who have been ignored, as we all know, for many, many decades. How do we position our children to be resource developed, to be highlighted, to be raised, to be given the same opportunities as other children? I want our children to be placed in that same playing field. I'll give you a great example. When I was growing up, I'm not sure, what high school you attended, but when I was growing up in Liberty City, they bussed us out to Largo, Tibet. They bussed us out to Windsor Forest, only to try to integrate schools to continue that. That's not what we're here for anymore. We're here to put our children first. So tell me your plan about how we put the fifth district children at the front of the line for resources, growth, and learning?
Well, let me say this to you. I went to Groves High School, and I'm familiar with the busing situation. Also, I remember when I worked at Haven Elementary School, they brought in this idea of magnet schools in all of the African American schools in order to bus in the other culture. I'll say culture
Now you
in
what
these
you're saying.
magnet schools, and in these magnet schools,
You got to worry about me. You know that. You got to worry
right,
about
right.
me.
You're not really Caucasian. I already know that. And in these magnet schools, they flooded those schools with resources. Anything like the school that I work with at Haven was mathematics and science. They flooded it with all sorts of resources. They had teachers taking particular gaining more certification, and so that they can be certified to teach these classes for these children. And in those schools, there was still a division. And the division was the students who lived in those neighborhoods did not or was not able to participate in those classes. So there was a division among those children who were in that magnet school and the neighborhood students. The only time they put them together was in maybe if they did a lab
Out of lunchroom.
or lunchroom. And so in order for that to happen, now today, we don't have any magnet schools. Today we have called specialty schools where our students can apply and they have to meet that criteria in order to get to those particular specialty schools. In my opinion, I believe it's wrong. That's just my opinion. Because just because Johnny, who lives in Tatumville, does not have the grade point average, not saying that may be a criteria for him to get into one of these specialty schools, but he has a passion for singing, a passion for playing music where he can go to Garrison, but he doesn't meet the criteria because he doesn't have the grade point. What do we do with that child?
Yeah.
I do know we can't flood all those children at that school, but I think there should be some type of leadway to give these children opportunity to be able to go to these type of schools.
Well, and the problem with that, and Chuck, you know this all too well, and Theresa, you see this every day. The problem with our children, our black and brown children, that people don't realize, and I tell parents this every day, don't ever allow a educator to tell you that your child is a problem. The issue is our children, that little Johnny from Tatumville, from Liberty City, from Poplar Place, they're actually smarter. They're actually gifted. They're smarter. They just are not challenged.
Right.
That's the issue. We've got to start putting our young men and women, and that's why we have a crime problem. See, all this links, y'all, as for our viewers. We've got a crime problem because we don't challenge our young people, and we don't put them in spaces to be successful. So what I really look forward to, and I hope we have a board that will challenge the school board president to invest in that and to invest in public education, because we just got to do a better job of placing our students in a successful position instead of a deaf position.
Right. And also we need to, like the coalition, the 5th District Coalition, fabulous. I see when I was on that program with them, I saw all those educators. We as a people in the 5th District, we gotta rally around our schools in the 5th District, especially Haven, especially Hodge, Durin, and Largo Tibet. We cannot forget about Largo Tibet. Yeah. These schools are, so to speak, struggling a little bit. And we as a community, we're going to have to band together and do a lot more than what we're doing. We can't it's not the same as usual for us to come together once a month and have a meeting. But we got to utilize the resources that we have in our community. And there are a lot of resources out there in which we can connect with and to bring them into the 5th District. We can make it happen. These are our schools. We can make it happen.
Yeah. And I'm sorry. It's interesting. I'm a Durin Dolphin, y'all. So Chuck, what are your thoughts?
We're claiming middle school.
We are claiming middle school. We are
how deep? Is that really how deep it goes?
That's how deep it goes. The Ren Dolphins, make sure you leave comments since he doesn't appreciate the Dolphin world.
I mean,
And I'm talking about
I'm
the
trying
Ren.
to remember. I'm trying to remember what my middle school
I'm
mascot.
talking about the Ren without the hallways, with the it's I think
Outside,
it's
the old
yeah,
Duran. You're
the
talking
real
about the
East
one that
Side High.
they're using it now for design and maintenance department for design, the design team there who's creating the new schools, who building the new schools. That's where they
Mhm.
are housed at. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So one of my, I think, most fascinating things about the school board elections this year, I was telling you a little bit about this before we hit the live button, was just the contrast between this perceived pro-charter school right-wing group of candidates led by Roger Moss, who did win without a runoff, 50.17% of the vote he got. And these district races. Now, in your race in the 5th district, there were 3 candidates. Your opponent in the runoff was not really as far to the right as the guy the Trey Burrison who lost, right? Like that, they're not quite as far. Together, you guys really trounced that 3rd place candidate. Dr. Tanya Howard Hall in the 8th district, beat the brakes off of Jasmine Polly. David Bringman was maybe 5% less in vote total. He was right up there with her too. So I'm amazed by this contrast between the district races that were up for election this year and the countywide voters in the other districts that sent Roger Moss to the presidency. It can't really just be about the charter school choice thing, is it? What do you make of these differences in outcomes?
Well, I think they were more focused on the president because he is the person that's going to be in the lead of making sure that setting the agenda as to how they would do things. And I think people were, and I believe that Dr. Tanya Hall and David Brigham in their positions, they have been doing what they needed to do. They have earned the trust of their district. But I believe everybody was really focused on this particular race when it came to president because of the leadership or what his plan of what he's going to do may give them the outcome in which they are seeking. However, everybody has a vote. Everybody has a vote to determine what will be the outcome.
No, I agree. And if I could comment on that, the thing that got me with that president race, I did not see that coming. But I think what I'm deeply afraid of, and you spoke on this earlier, is that you have an individual, and I don't know this person personally, but one thing about me, when I say things, I want people to understand that I'm separating the person from the leader. The leader to me is horrible. I don't believe he will be coming in there with the students as a priority. When you're in a school board position, whether you're an educator or if you're on the board, you put the students' learning as a priority. And I don't believe that's the case. I think the case is to put an agenda. And in Roger's case, he's coming with a very clear agenda. And that clear agenda is we are going to remove the support from public schools and go with this ridiculous idea of school choice. I don't like it. It's bad. And the voters have got to start getting out there and understanding that when you don't vote, you're supporting foolishness like that.
And another thing, I remember back in the day, we did this campaign with OSD. And OSD was the campaign that they would send a group in from the state to come in to govern our schools. And we band together to get them for that not to happen.
Statewide referendum, 2014. I was right there with you. Yeah.
Right. And the one thing that we did was gave people knowledge. We cut out all the big words. We gave them the core knowledge. Look, if they come in here and they take over these schools, this is what's going to happen. You will not be able to do this, and they can come and take over the whole school. And people heard that and they voted against that. And this is the same way we have to do as each district person. Educate your district, educate them and let them know this is what's going on. This is the agenda in which this individual is trying to push. What are we going to do about it? What do you want me to do about it? As the local elected person, what do you want me to do about it? And that's the whole plan of letting my district know, letting the 5th district know what's going on, so that they can be behind, so we can all be one in this situation.
I just want to mention a quick historical. I love the fact that you brought up OSD. That just for our listeners and viewers, I want people to understand this was the Nathan Deal administration.
It was
trying to do, because DeKalb County had a really big blow up in their school system in 2012. So much so that they do continue to this day, really. But that's a separate issue.
Let me be a superintendent.
They removed the entire school board put Mike Thurman in charge of the school system there for 2 years. And now he's the CEO of the whole county, you know, because it was so bad. And they were trying to do it whole statewide. I just want to mention House District 163, former Representative J. Craig Gordon was one of 14 Democrats to vote for that bill. I'll never forget that about him. And I always told him, I said, man, you can't piss the teachers off. They're the biggest base you have, you know, largest.
The teachers and the unions, you cannot make them angry.
Right, especially here in Savannah with all the unions that we have here. You just made a great point, Theresa, about how people lead on agendas. And I've played this clip for every school board candidate. I don't know if you got a chance to, but we did have an interview with all 3 of the school board president candidates. You know, look, Roger seems like a nice guy. You know, like I really believe he actually is a genuinely nice guy. You know, I don't think you're going to have a ton of unpleasant interactions with him as the school board president. However, you know, when we talk about agendas, you know, for whom and from whom are always appropriate questions. So let me plug this this video up here for us.
What had happened in Central Harlem was failure became the norm. The schools were lousy, the healthcare was lousy, gangs were prevalent, violence was all over, families were falling apart. You can't raise children in a community like that. People had been talking about things, but not doing anything. Okay, I'm doing great. How about right here on 119th Street? If we could fix this block, then we could fix the next block, then we could fix the next block. We promised parents, if your child stays with us, I guarantee you that child is going to graduate from college. Failure is simply not an option. 60 to 70 to 80 to 97 blocks, which ends up being 10,000 children. We start with children from birth and stay with those children until they graduate. If you really want to have an impact that is large, you'll get there going one step at a time. There is no act that is too small to make a difference.
No matter what you want to do.
And brought to you by American Express.
Help you take the first step.
I know you're tired of seeing that clip by now.
No. I want you, when you're done, I want you to go look up another one. It's called Corridor of Shame. I want you to look it up and play a quick piece of it real quick. When you get a minute, right?
Send it to me so I can find it real quick. But Theresa, I just want to. Roger Moss has run his entire campaign basically on the platform of we need more school choice, we need more charter schools. I have the history with these charter schools, which is true. He's got more good and bad experience with charter schools than anybody else in town, right? When people think of charter schools, they want to think of that, like that. Uber and the Harlem Children's Zone, Jeffrey Canada, who is a former IBM executive, okay, private sector money, super smart guy. That project has been funded like 50 to 60% by private money since its inception, right? And it's highly successful. I'm not here to say that all charter schools are bad because I see the opposition trying to pigeonhole people when it's like, well, don't you claim to want to serve the underprivileged, underserved youth of the 5th district, but here's a model that has worked for other underserved, underprivileged youths in other cities, right? What are your thoughts about this idea of charterizing a significant or even a smaller portion of Chatham County's public schools and just this whole cross current of selling charters as this hope for poor Black children, as well as its threat to public education standards, rigorous, review process, all the things that come with public schools traditionally. Feel free to take as much time as you want.
Well, there's two types of charter schools. There's one for profit, and there's one nonprofit for not profit. And the ones we have in the state of Georgia are for nonprofit. I know at least the ones in Chatham County. So that's the difference. Now, when it comes to charter schools taking our money to build their schools, I have to go back to educating folks, find out what is the real trueness as to why this school is better than this particular school, which has been here for years. What are we doing different? And parents and people, I'm gonna say people like to hear, I'll call it a car salesman. People like to hear the catchy things that's going to encourage them. Send your child to the school, just like in that commercial. We do this, we do that, we do this. So what's the difference to what our schools are doing now? There is no different. Those teachers are the same teachers who teach in those schools. They all have to get the same degree. They all have to get the same certification. What's going on? The only thing different that I see that's between the two is that the children that go to maybe this particular school, this charter school, are better behaved. You get the best of the best. Because once they don't do what they're supposed to do as far as behavior wise, they're going to ship them out. That's the only thing that I am visualizing, I am seeing. But what is the difference? There is no difference. Schools are schools. Well, there is no difference.
Well, the difference is smoke and mirrors. People want to put this out there. Well, I'm going to break it down for you and for everybody. People want to make it seem like this is a Cadillac versus a Ford Pinto, and it's not. At the end of the day, the problem is this. People like anything that's nice and shiny, but at the end, let me tell you about this here. Let me talk about Alfred Eli Beach High School and why those children could excel. If the same school board would pour as much resources, would put as much attention as they did as it put into putting bricks and making White Bluff Elementary look good, put that in the classroom. Do that. That's how you get our children ready. Challenge our young people. Make sure that they're ready and engaged in learning. Make sure that we're preparing them and putting them in spaces where they are actually successful, right? So I agree with you. But let me tell you one educator that I grew up with right across the street, Richard R. Moe, who used to lead Beach High School. People don't remember that, Savannah, who was also in that 5th District School Board seat many years ago. But when you have educators like that, when you have educators who understand the system, who advocate, who aren't afraid to step up, that's when we start doing things different. But the charter school thing, let me tell you something. There's so many young people walking throughout Savannah who, Bonzo Reddick, a physician in Savannah, myself, a number of people, who have come through our public school system. So anybody who want to throw me this bull crap about the charter schools are better, they're not.
They're not.
You're just basically giving them the resources that we need to give to our public schools.
And that's by law. And that's by law. You
it's have by design.
To. You have to. So, and I always try to educate. Oh my gosh. I hear so many parents say when I'm having where school your child go to, I don't want my child to go to that school because they're not learning anything. Well, and the first thing I'm asking them, what do you mean they're not learning anything? Their curriculum is different from that school over there in White on the island. What's the difference? There is no difference. It's the same curriculum. It may take at this particular school because we're talking about children behavior, where it may take them 60 minutes to get their class. If you're not a veteran teacher and you don't know nothing about classroom management, you're gonna sink. And it may take you 60 minutes to get those children in where they need to be in order for you to teach them what you need to teach today.
And here's the other part I want to see done differently. It irks my nerves in communities like Athens, Georgia, where the University of Georgia sits in our backyard. We got Georgia Southern University, Savannah State University right there in Savannah, right? There needs to be partnerships there. And let me tell you why. The clip I just sent Chuck talks about, the clip I sent Chuck will talk about what South Carolina has called the corridor of shame. And I didn't realize this, Theresa, till now. Every state has a major highway. Along one of those major highways is a major poverty-stricken line of issues. In South Carolina, it's 95. So that corridor of shame is rural Black communities where poverty equals poor education, which equals poor schools, which equals a lot of other issues. So what Clemson University has done is create programs that help to turn that around, that give students an opportunity who wouldn't normally come to higher education through programs like Emerging Scholars. And what they do is they bring those students in, they put them in bridge programs, summer bridge programs. But we got to start seeing more partnerships with the public school system, with Georgia Southern and Savannah State, and both universities and the Board of Regents have got to put the money up to help alleviate this gap. That's how you address crime, Mayor Johnson. But I think we need to start seeing some of that and having the superintendent, the mayor, the council, the county commission start looking at how do we bridge that gap. But it's going to take more than a school board president trying to distract funds. We got to pour more funds in, and we got to pour more resources and more partnership.
Right. And I agree with you 100%. I don't understand why there is such a separation in with all of them. I don't understand that, because if we did join together, I think we will see an improvement. I know we will see an improvement if we all work together.
So I gave Chuck a little homework. That's why he's quiet. I think you're muted, Chuck.
Of course I'd be muted. Sorry about that. I do have this pulled up, RG, and the clip from it I want to play is a clip about what I think is one of the most pressing issues facing school boards and top tier leaders of public school systems. This is from Corridor of Shame, Neglect of South Carolina's Rural Schools. Of course, Dr. Bryant here has a lot of research and focus in that area in the higher education system. But let's listen in.
Attracting and retaining good teaching talent.
We have a very high turnover rate of teachers.
Why? Because teachers come to districts based on the type of facilities, the type of resources, and funding is an issue.
1/3 of our teachers are new to our school every year. The children are hampered every single time.
Every day I had a blue.
Children in a poor community can learn if the resources are there, qualified and certified staff there, and administrators that know how to deal with those barriers that those children bring to the classroom. That those children can be very successful if their social and emotional problems are addressed, as well as their educational needs.
All right, so I want to start with just, look, the school board is going through right now required public hearings because they're raising taxes by $36 million year over year. Okay, in this economy, how can they be justifying higher taxation, mostly on renters and working class people, when we have such struggling outcomes? It reminds me a lot of what we focus on this podcast is the city of Savannah, Theresa, and lately it's horribly run police department. Okay, and there's some similar corolarities, and let me just give me a little bit of rope here as I describe them. But the biggest thing I heard out of there was retention, facilities, funding, resources, and the fact that 1/3 of teachers, just like 1/3 of our police, at least something like 50% of our police officers are basically rookies, right? They don't know what they're doing. Just like, I'm sure you probably didn't know what you were doing the first year you were teaching compared to now, right? So like anybody in whatever industry you're in, you're going to be a lot better at something 8 years in, 10 years in than you are the first year. So, we're raising taxes. We have money. We're building nice schools in certain areas, but we don't seem to be moving the outcomes in the places that matter most, which the 5th district is inclusive of. The 5th district, the 1st district, the 3rd district, the 6th district a little bit. But these districts are where our poverty is hardest hit, where our disparities are largest, Your thoughts?
One thing that stood out to me is the retention, like you said. Retention. Every year I get ready for new teachers orientation. We're inducting 400 to 500 new teachers, and I know that number probably has escalated this year because of various reasons. And then another thing that stood out to me is, are we reaching our children in the 5th district or any district, all the districts, social and emotional uh, well-being? Are we reaching them? No. I don't believe, and I believe that is the number one problem as to why our children are where they are when it comes to reading, comprehension, because we're not reaching the social and emotional well-being of our children in the 5th district. There has to be some kind of revising or implementing some kind of program where we are hitting that first in order to reach our children in the 5th district. And it's not happening. It's simply not happening.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Archie.
I totally agree with you. And the reason, and this is my thing, what folks don't understand, especially when you come from communities like this 5th district, where honestly our families and our children are in spaces where life is real. And I'll use that term because I'm not going to generalize it, but I've had friends and I see children who are coming from single parent homes, who that single parent is not necessarily there when they get home, who have other issues socially because they see some things in the home that other children don't see out there on other parts of the city. And when you have to go to school with that, and oh, by the way, I'm hungry because I don't get breakfast. Those are real issues that we've got to address. As my mama would say as a teacher, you can't go to school and learn if you're hungry. And so I'm glad that you said that, Theresa. It's so important that we begin to address the systematic pieces and the personal of the child, because if those things aren't addressed, like you said, we are in a major issue.
I agree with that, RG. I see a lot of problems and a lot of potential solutions, and I just want to get Teresa's opinion on a few of them. I've always felt like, look, when we send our young men and women, the bravest among us in this country, to war, we pay them combat pay, right? We have some of these schools that these children are coming. We need people with psychology degrees and master's degrees. And the only way you can get people to go in there, look, I know there's a lot of patriotic people in this country, but trust me, when you start signing up for your 4th tour of duty, that duty-free, that tax-free hazard pay, a little bit of a incentive, right, to get people to go do the worst jobs. It's a tough job teaching in historically underserved, underbanked, underlended, under everything, communities like the west side of Savannah. One thing, when we had Dr. Sid Chapman on, the former head of the Georgia Association of Educators, he was he was a guest moderator for some of our school board president interviews. One idea we threw around was having, based on socioeconomic standards, basically, having a dedicated paraprofessional in the worst hit areas in every classroom. Like maybe not system wide, but if we're going to stick with neighborhood schools, right, then the neighborhoods who are the worst hit, hardest hit, historically underserved, they're going to need some more resources to catch up in the race that is American life. What are your thoughts on mandating based on, the geography and the statistics that are from that geography, some resources for historically underserved communities?
Oh, 100%. There are resources now under Title I on some of those schools. I think all of those schools and I believe in the 5th district, not all of them, some of the schools in the 5th district are Title I schools. And in those Title I's, that's money, federal government money that they can receive to bring in resources. other more resources, like maybe pay for a particular an additional teacher, or supplies, laptops. I mean, any electronic that will be used to engage that child into helping them learn. So there is federal funding for that. If they have an overwhelming population of special ed children, there is money allowed in federal government money that is allowed for that. So there are fundings that are coming into our schools. The point that I want to stress is we need more social workers. We need more teachers who are beyond the books of how to obtain a proper classroom. It's beyond the books, because they teach you in school how to structure your class, and it's beyond that. You have to be coming ready, set, go, and you have to be able to reach those children socially, emotionally. And if you don't do that, you can have every technology, you can have every program, and it won't work, because you're missing that one small piece. And it starts in our elementary. If we can get it starting at elementary level, about time they get to Durin, they'll be ready. And then about time they get to Beach, they'll be super duper ready. But we're missing a piece in that.
Well, a lot of what being a school board member is about, like, connecting national and state resources to the local leadership. And I think your experience through the Federation of Teachers at the state, local, and national level, really sets you apart in this race from others, because, people might have a misconception about, school board members are not in schools every day, day in and day out. I mean, these people are meeting, weekly, bi-weekly committees, working groups, board meetings, workshops, state trips, conferences, and so a lot of what this is about trying to get some best practices from other areas, getting grant money for those best practices, and implementing here. Betty Jones has a question that says, how do you feel about social promotion?
I'm not aware of that. What is that?
Social promotion is, and Miss Jones, you make sure, correct me if I'm wrong. Social promotion is pushing a child to the next grade when they're not academically ready.
Yeah, that's silly. That's dumb, really.
Am I right, Miss Jones? If
she'll comment in a second,
okay.
I'm sure. She's a loyal viewer.
I do not agree with it.
No,
I do not agree with it. If a child is not ready to, this curriculum is based on, I call it one on top of the other. Everything they're getting in first grade is pushing them to go to the second grade. By the time they finish school, from the beginning to the end, they are ready to start the beginning of second grade. If they have lost skills in that first grade and didn't accomplish that, how in the world are they going to go to the second grade? They're going to be behind. They're going to be so behind. And I don't care how many resource teachers that come in to work with them small group. And I'm not knocking that, because they do those resource teachers, those EIP teachers that come in to work with those children do a wonderful job. That paraprofessional, that SPED teacher, that whoever come in those classrooms, they do a wonderful job. I commend them. But that child, and if that child is getting all that in that classroom that day and gets none of that at home,
yeah,
how's that going to work?
First, let me ask you this, and I think there's so much wrong with the system of education right now, especially K-12. I've heard a number of teachers are disgruntled about that whole idea. I think it's silly. How can you pass, like you said, how are you going to pass? Would you give a doctor, somebody a scalp who don't have a medical degree? You wouldn't,
No.
right? So
why
let me
we
ask
do it
you
with
this.
education?
I don't think in any level of education, higher ed included, we do not assess student learning for skills. We assess it to check a box. So the SAT and all that, that's a silly test. It's dumb. I'll be the first to say it. So how do we change that? We need to measure skills, because it goes back to what I said earlier. You can't tell me the young children in District 5 are not smart. They're not challenged. That's the problem. So how do we
Right.
change the narrative to measure skills and not measure just this checkbox for a test?
Right. Right. Well, I'm gonna say this: a lot of parents don't know they don't have to allow their child to take that test.
Mm-hmm.
That's a law. You don't have to take that test. And I believe the district used that test to show measurement to see where their students are. However, I have heard teachers complain because if their class, they're the lead person in that class, and if their children does not meet a certain mark, it affects them with their
evaluations.
Thank you, evaluation. Is that fair? That because I had little Johnny who slept all day in my class because he was tired. Is that fair? And I did what I needed to do as a teacher to teach him, had the necessary conversations with parents to tell him what's going on with Johnny, but he still didn't meet the mark, but I'm penalized for it. Is that fair? I do believe that we need to come up with some other kind of teachers need to teach. That's what they went to college for. That's what they enjoy. No teacher I know have ever known said, I'm going to be the teacher because I'm going to make great amount of money. They did it because they always say, because I love children and I want to help children. But they are not, this state that we're in now, they're not able to do that. They can't reach them. They can't do it. Because they're being limited by expectations of a test score.
Yeah, and in your example, there are two pieces in that example that struck out to me. One, not only is the teacher penalized, but nobody ever stopped to say, why is Johnny sleeping in class? See, that's the problem with the system. The system looks at the system looks at our children, and this is my opinion, Chuck. This is my theory.
I got the perfect clip.
The reason why those standardized tests are there are to measure by the third grade who we gonna put in prison. It's a pipeline foolishness mess. And I'll sit here first. You can go tell Governor Kemp.
Well, as the resident lightest skinned person on this program tonight, I'll just speak confidently when I say, when it comes to expectations for Black children, as a privileged white person coming up, I learned everything I needed to know about this issue from Coach Boone.
Mm-hmm.
Let me share this up.
Man, I love that movie.
Listen, about Petey.
No thanks required, Coach.
Thanks. You challenged my authority in front of the entire football team, Coach. Now you think you're doing these boys a favor, taking them aside every time I come down on them, protecting them from Big Bad Boone. You're cutting my legs from under me.
Some of the boys just don't respond well to public criticism. I tell them what they need to know, but I don't humiliate them in front of the team.
Which boys you talking about? Which ones you talking about? I come down on Bertier, I don't see you coddle him.
Hello.
Come down on Sunshine, don't see you grab his hand, take him off to the side. Which boys you talking about? Now, I may be a mean cuss, but I'm the same mean cuss with everybody out there on that football field.
That's right.
The world don't give a damn about how sensitive these kids are, especially the young Black kids.
Damn sure.
Right. That's right.
You doing these kids a favor by patronizing them.
So I just pulled that up to say that a lot of white liberal policy is this kind of just over patronization of, I know that, historically your people are disadvantaged and therefore we're just going to let you go on through, because that's the social promotion. Like that type of mindset is this failed kind of post 1990s. It's this no child left behind 2000s BS. It's this, no, I get it. We can't leave you behind. And so it's not even, I do recognize that the school to prison pipeline is real, but in Savannah, I think it's the school to hotel worker pipeline, that is almost just as critical to be suspicious of as the school to prison pipeline here in Savannah.
Wow.
Well, let me say this. This is one thing I used my work in higher ed. I deal with a lot of young Black males, and one of the things I'm toughest on are young Black males, and that's because when you walk out my door,
Yeah.
When you walk out my multicultural center, you're gonna be the N word to them all day, every day, regardless. And I know that, whatever. But at the end of the day, I have expectations. Theresa, you're gonna talk about this. I need you to talk about expectations. 3 things. Don't come in here with your mess. You better keep your grades up, and I'm gonna cuss you out if you mess up. And I mean cuss you out. And whoever don't like it, that's not my problem because you're grown. And when you sit a young black male down, it ain't no, let me coddle you and feel like, no, I'm about to let you have all of it. Because you're not gonna go out there and embarrass me. You're not gonna go out there and embarrass yourself, and your mom and dad ain't sending your ass up here to act stupid. And that's the kind of conversation I have because I have a high level of expectation. And so that's what we got to do, Chuck. We can't just all these wonderful words people throw around. At the end of the day, you got to sit our young children down and tell them, get your behind in there and do your work.
Yeah.
You gonna wish your ass had her. As my daddy would say.
And I probably wouldn't have said it like that, but it's real. But it's real. But it's real. We have to have those one-on-one, face-to-face, eyeball-to-eyeball conversations with our children and let them know that if you don't get it here, you're not going to get it out there. What you're seeing out there is a figment of your imagination. This is real right here. And it starts right here. It starts right here. So I agree. The expectation with our children is very high. And then we want them to achieve. We want to pour into them. I know several teachers who do that daily, paraprofessionals who do that, custodians who do that, pour into those children to let them know that you are special. You are worth it. But you got to start right here. You got to start right here. And that goes back to what I said before, helping our children with that social and emotional well-being. That's it.
Chuck, let me tell a story real quick. So my mom was a teacher, Theresa.
I do kind of.
Let me. It ain't gonna take me long, but just to tell you how that works. So as y'all know, I probably wasn't the best child, especially as a young child. I was always a little bit wild. So by the time I got to 3rd grade, I had cut up so bad that Miss Singleton, she had a whole paddle with my name on it and said, "I dare you to cut up in this class." That's the kind of stuff you got to do. You got to put the fear of God in these kids. Because by the time they get to 12th grade, if you don't, they probably have, we got the problem we got now in the streets of Savannah. You got to make sure they stay scared. As they say, you're going to be scared cut up in here. Chuck, I didn't even see you leave. You just disappeared.
You know what? The internet keeps going in and out. Sorry about that. It went in and out. All I want to say was that, somewhere between, we just watched this clip about from Remember the Titans, great movie. Another movie that always comes to mind when I think about like public education in Chatham County, it's just obviously the classic, Joe Morgan, Lean on Me, right?
I love it.
So if we're going to have these expectations for these kids, I think we need it for the teachers, but more importantly than that, I think we need it for 208 Bull Street.
Yeah.
Where is that fired up Joe Morgan spirit?
Joe Clark.
Joe Clark. I'm sorry. I'm
who Joe Clark is?
It's Joe Clark. Joe Clark and is Morgan Freeman. I'm mixing the names up, obviously. But yeah, where is the Joe Clark attitude at 208 Bull Street? And mixing this conversation in and around the whole charter school issue with Roger Moss being the new president. I just don't see this board, going along on this direction of a right-wing charterization of Chatham County Public Schools. But what I'm looking for is what's the 5 or 6 member majority that is going to materialize? Are they going to start applying this type of fervor we're talking about to the administrators themselves? Because the Chatham County schools are great at putting out requests for proposals for new schools with contractors, right? That operation of the shop at 208 Bull Street runs very well, right? But for some reason, the shop that trains these first-year teachers, retains them, mentors them, develops them into superstar teachers that we can deploy to the worst hard-hit areas of our county in terms of resources needed. Where is that, efficiency and where is the excitement and the passion to change things at that level?
Well, you do know that one of the jobs is that we don't dictate to Dr. Levette of how to run her schools. That's just one of the jobs of the school board. However, because and as you mentioned before, the various committees that each board member is a part of has that ability to influence how things should work and be informed as to what they're going to implement. So what we can do is take that information and like if I was on the academic portion of the school in the school district, sitting in on with those people, what I can do is take that vital information back to the constituency of the 5th district to say, hey, everyone, this is what's getting ready to happen in our schools. What do you think we need to do as a whole to make it happen for our children so our children can be successful? What can we do to help these teachers be successful in the 5th district with our children? Those are the kind of things that I desire to do. I want to do. I want to be so informed that I inform my neighbor as to this is going on. What can we do to help? We got to do that.
I love that. I think, as you were talking, I love it. I think what would be nice to see, and this is what people say is pie in the sky, a great idea that may not ever happen, but the school board representative, the city council, and the county commissioner, those 3 elected leaders come together and have those forums.
Right.
That's cutting edge leadership, and we can do that, I think, in our area.
Right.
Well, I've got up on the screen and scrolling down, and I'll put in the podcast apps. It's Theresa Watson, 5thdistrict.com. If you want to get some more information. If you just want to close out our interview with just anything else you want our viewing and listening audience to know, I really appreciate you stopping by.
Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed this robust conversation that we have. Ooh,
I know. Hey, look, I know that.
Hey, we go 30 more minutes, Chuck. Come on.
Hey, I told it. Well, look, we gotta go listen to this podcast as part of this episode. I told her about this. We're about to listen to Savannah Morning News' podcast to comment on it. But I just did want to say that I know that you've had a long election cycle. It's your second time running.
Yeah.
I've been to some of those forums. They're not that fun. They're not that. It's not easy to sit through hours and hours and hours. So I really appreciate you saying that you enjoyed your time here, because we do try to make these discussions, especially with one-on-one with a candidate, just more robust, absolutely more robust and more interesting for the average voter to be able to get some information. So,
but I definitely want to remind everybody, please go out and vote. I know I have heard you, like you just said earlier, that people don't come out for the runoff. Hey, I'm a firm believer in the power of prayer. That's just who I am.
Right.
And I believe that people are going to get up and go out and vote in this runoff election, especially the 5th district. I have heard from them. I have talked to them. I have been on forums with the 5th district, and they told me they wanted the right person to be in this seat. I am the right person, Theresa Watson. So vote for me. So I expect the 5th district to get out of their houses, get in their cars, their vans, their trucks, a motorcycle, bicycles, June 21st. Vote Theresa Watson for the 5th district. I am your next 5th district representative, and I appreciate your support. Thank you.
Woo! Man, that's hot right there. I like that enthusiasm. Theresa, we wish you the best of luck on Tuesday, and we'll be watching for the results closely to see your win come through, okay? Thanks for stopping by. Well, that was a great interview, RG. Dr. Bryant, she seems like a great candidate for school board, 5th district. A lot of people, are backing her opponent, but these are kind of the same. That's why I asked that question about, is the old guard slipping away?
Well, and I didn't want to say this, but at that time, but I think, I'm not sure. Okay, so we know MPHC organization. So I think I might be wrong, but Ann may be a Delta. Irene's a Delta. I mean, you know how that runs. If an Alpha's, well, I'm personally not like it. I'm an Alpha, Ben's Alpha. Damn sure ain't gonna support his campaign, but
I hear you.
Sometimes that's how it rolls.
I have fraternity brothers who I am members of the same organization with, and I have fraternity brothers that I'm bros with.
Yeah, and so I'm a full supporter, but But Keisha's AKA, so I'm still fine. So, but yeah, but I think that might be part of it. But the old guard, I mean, and honestly, I struggle with the old guard, new guard. I think the problem is we have elected officials of color in Savannah who are unwilling to step off what I call their talented TIF pedestal to listen to the people in the trenches. And what I mean by that is we have former mayors who I have respect for, but they won't go into the Hitch villages. They won't go into the Fraser homes and listen to these people and understand systematic issues. They understand it from their level, but it's much different to go into a Hitch village and to hear a mom say, I've got to do these things to make my life work. And by the way, my children don't have the same resources because I've got to do these things. That's real. And I think with people our age, we get and are willing to go hear those stories, and that matters. And I think that's the disconnect a lot of times.
Well, I love that discussion with Theresa. I love that it made me think of that scene in Remember the Titans, and I was able to find it. It's got a lot of commentary today. I think that the people that Martin Luther King Jr. called the white moderates when he was writing from jail are now the white liberals. You know, the white neoliberal, just this kind of, I know what's best for you poor. Who speaks for the poor black people? Me, the privileged white lady, does. You know, this type of attitude in our politics locally. And so I want to play a clip from today's The Commute podcast. This is This is from our lovely old friends at the Savannah Morning News and their podcast, flagship by Adam Van Brimmer. This episode today, RG, features Rebecca Rolfs, who is the former president of the Coastal Georgia League of Women Voters. You know, she's no longer the leader of that organization. Nina Alsheiler is. But Savannah Morning News seems to have shifted her into this pseudo kind of MSNBC style analyst. Okay. And so I found this conversation between her and Adam Van Brimmer about the 1st Congressional District primary to be tremendously frustrating and, of course, nowhere near productive. Let's listen in for a little bit and you'll get the drift. I think you'll understand what I mean very quickly.
Yeah.
On the Thursday episode.
Oh God! Of course, I'd lose my spot.
And so there, a lot of them are in that 25,
trying to pretend.
And
all right, here it is.
Sort of fool's errand of trying to get people to go back to the polls a month after they were just there. Yeah. It's also 98 degrees down here.
Right.
A lot of people not real anxious to stand in line out there, and who can blame them?
Yeah. Yeah, the only drawback I see with that is the whole idea of letting our legislature do any more voting reforms. He's a relative centrist, moderate Democrat who has raised for somebody who has not taken any money other than from individual donors. He's raised a lot of money, over $500,000. He's trying to pretend he's not, but he's a relative centrist, moderate Democrat. He is running against Joyce Marie Griggs, who has raised less than $3,000 if her financial disclosures are accurate, which we will assume they are. She, of course, has run twice. She has run twice previously and lost twice previously, and really has not put up much of a fight. And here you have the incumbent is Buddy Carter, who is maybe as vulnerable now as he's ever been. I think a lot of people. His stance on January 6th, where he voted against certifying the election, alienated a lot of people. Just about everybody that's not on the Trump train on the far right was at least raised some eyebrows over Buddy doing that. So here we are in an election, and Joyce Marie Griggs gets 48% of the vote, almost wins without a runoff.
All right, so before we go any further, just to set it up for everybody, they are having a discussion about this 1st Congressional District primary runoff. I'll remind all of our viewers, Better Savannah is a state and local political action committee. We do not endorse federal elections. I don't really have a dog in this fight on behalf of Better Savannah. But as a longtime observer of Democratic Party politics, I've seen this concerted effort to tear down Joyce Griggs the last 2 weeks.
I agree.
I've never seen this level of coordination for that seat. And I want to remind everyone, I managed a congressional campaign for this seat in 2014. So I have a lot of direct, very long measured experience in this district at the congressional level. I know what these people are doing, and I know that they're running around it the wrong way. As Pastor Smalls pointed out recently, they're going to lose either way. If they win by pissing off a bunch of the black voters that are historic base voters of this party, they're not going to vote for Wade in the fall against Buddy, and he's going to lose that way. And he's probably going to lose to Joyce anyway. So that was the intro. Let's get to the meat of this back and forth with them.
And I sit here and scratch my head and have to wonder, is that a Wade Herring failing to connect? And she won every county. It wasn't like it was
right.
It was across the board. So when you look at this race, what do you see? Do you see it as a failure on Herring's part? And if so, does he have a chance to turn that around next week?
Well, that's an excellent question. And like I said before, you have to think that Michelle Monroe was the wrench in the works there and split off some people who might have voted for Wade Herring, might have voted for Joyce Marie Griggs. Who knows? And that's what the runoff will show. Back to your point about a lot of people were alienated by what Buddy Carter did. I mean, starting with Wade Herring, right. He does the very high profile op-ed in the Savannah Morning News, which was picked up nationally. And this just, anger and righteous indignation. So back to the who can beat Buddy Carter. If you're a Democrat, that's more what you're looking for. Is who can beat Buddy Carter. And I think Joyce Marie Griggs has proved that she can't. She can't beat him. And she definitely can't beat him with only $3,000. If Buddy doesn't have anything else, he has a very big war chest. And he will have another one this time. So
this constant derision about lack of fundraising money, I want to remind everyone that in the race for mayor of Savannah last year, 2019, Van Johnson raised $70,000. Eddie Deloach raised $300,000. Chester Ellis, who was the county commission chairman, raised less than $40,000. And Jason Buterman raised $400,000 and lost. So money is never the sole predictor for success, right? And also just this whole idea that all Democratic voters want is, who's best, who's the likely. Like this is some, NBA, draft lottery system that we're all playing fantasy with here.
Well, let me say, as you were playing this, I was sitting here, Chuck. I want to get your opinion on this. I was sitting here thinking about Jack Kingston. Jack Kingston was well liked by people. No, even black folk love Jack Kingston. And Buddy is not a Jack Kingston. So what is it about him that is so difficult to beat? I don't agree with the statement. And by the way, we're going to have Wade on Saturday on Watchdog, so I'm not going to go too far in that direction. But I don't agree that Joyce Marie Griggs can't beat Buddy Carter.
Neither do I.
I don't, because Buddy is not a Jack Kingston. He's just not. Matter of fact, Buddy is actually sad. I won't go. I'll make that claim. But I think Joyce can beat him. I think if with the right strategy, if we permeate some of these communities, and if certain counties were not so dogmatically controlled by Republicans, like if you go down to Ware County, I wouldn't be surprised there's some voter fraud going on down there. Seriously. I went down to Ware County when I was campaigning. I was like, what the hell?
Well, we know there's voter fraud in Republican Tybee Island here in town. Yeah. So why wouldn't there be down there in Republican Ware County?
Yeah. In Ware County, it is so sad. So, I don't agree with this statement. I just think that there's got to be a recipe. And I don't think Wayne has a recipe, to be honest. No, did I lose your spot again?
If you can't win your primary, how can you be expected to beat Buddy? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, Joyce got 48%, Wade got 30%. Like, you barely in the runoff, Wade. So, like, I just don't understand this whole – because, again, and I'm not talking about Wade's campaign people. These are commentators. These are people separate from their campaign. I'm not talking about their campaign staff. But just listen to this portion.
So a small time seat of the pants kind of campaign, which is what Griggs has run the last 2 times. She gets attention, absolutely. Whatever she says at maximum volume, so you do tend to hear her when she's coming.
Constant derision, just condescending.
In my opinion, she doesn't do a very good job of laying out what it is she stands for and what it is she's going to do, partially because she has to spend so much time fending off the bad credibility problems she's had in the past. In terms of Wade Herring connecting with voters, I have been surprised. And I mean, I don't know Wade well, but I've known him a long time. I've seen him do a lot of things. And he's smart, he's personable, he's approachable.
Oh my God, save the bullshit.
He's so nice. He just is not a good politician.
He walks my dog. He eats my. Yeah, go to hell with that crap.
Like just this whole he's just too nice of a guy to be a politician. That's why he sucks at this. Like just this whole. I've never seen such pedalization. Putting on a pedestal. Of white mediocrity. Like he is just an average white corporate attorney who is a moderate to conservative Republican for most of his life. And finally, when the Republican Party started being bad for business the last 5 years, that's when it was too far for him. Not George Bush and war crimes and Katrina, not the banking crisis of 2008 that led to the worst wiping out of black wealth and the foreclosure crisis of 2009. All that stuff was fine. But only when the white guys with shaved heads showed up at the Capitol with guns is he now ready to come to this party. He's never done anything for this Democratic Party ever. And we're all just supposed to come on in, Mr. Herring. Come on in. Be our nominee, please. You're so wealthy. Thank you. No, man, that's not how party politics work. And I know you know this.
Well, no, I agree, but let me. She made a comment about Joyce not having the money and all that. At the end of the day, let me tell you how a campaign works for that young lady who made that comment. At the end of the day, when I ran a statewide race for Public Service Commission, which was like running a governorship race, right? I don't think we raised near 15,000. But you know what we did have? We had passionate people who had connections. I was on so many podcasts and in so many meetings that I would have never been a part to because I had people who were able to be strategic. That's what Joyce does good. Build connections. That's what matters. And when you have those connections, I can't tell you how many times Joyce has been I can guarantee you this. She's been in every county at least 20 times in these last couple of months.
I think that. So here's kind of like the infuriating part of this whole podcast clip to me is just these are the same people, the same media types, mainstream media types who laud the wise nature of the black voter when we choose Joe Biden in the primaries in 2020, right? These are the same types of media types that talk about how this myth of the moderate black voter that knows best for the Democratic Party, when it's against a socialist Jewish candidate who's going to actually bring some, meaningful policy change to the wealth gap, right? You know what I'm saying? So these people have no problem just using your community as a pawn each way, right? So when we want to beat a leftist candidate that we're scared of, they're the best. When all of a sudden, we want to get, and the last piece of this clip I'm going to play is just them talking about how, we just want it to be a good race. We want it, again, just this whole cop out. And I'm not even going to play it. I'm so done with it. But just these people, want to lecture this black community of coastal Georgia on who should, inside the Democratic Party primary electorate, you're talking about district-wide, 70% of the vote was black inside the Democratic primary. And for you to be this cavalier and disrespectful with 48% of the vote that Joyce got, you disrespect not just black voters writ large, but you just disrespect longtime party people. People like Theresa Watson, a longtime labor leader, a longtime Democratic Party person, somebody who has paid dues in this area, in this party. And we're just all supposed to throw all that aside for a hopeful win. We did that with Biden, and look how we're doing now.
Well, it's nothing different. Black women have gone through this for ages, it's nothing. What Joyce is going through now with that ignorant commentary is what Ketanji Brown just went through not so long ago. It's just we like you good, but by the way, let me remind you of that skin you got, and this is how we're gonna do it. It doesn't matter that Joyce has way more ranking than Wade. It doesn't matter that Joyce is still still a damn good attorney. It doesn't matter that Joyce is a well-respected servant to our country. That doesn't matter. What matters is, this nice guy over here who's raised all this money. Look at that juxtaposition and ask yourself, does that motivate you to vote or not? I mean, that's the stuff that folks got to start looking at and reading between the lines like you did.
And this derision of her, this whole she speaks so loud you can hear her coming from a mile away. Have you met Maxine Waters? Have you met Barbara Lee? Have you met these women? As if Joyce Marie Griggs would be the most eccentric black female member of even this Congress. She wouldn't be. She would not. She would be at least the 5th or 6th most eccentric black female congresswoman we have. Okay? But more importantly, I want to bring up the fact that you mentioned, this is a combat veteran, of 4 tours, 3 tours, all throughout the 2000s. Wade Herring in 2001, post 9/11, is making money at Hunter McLean, screwing over the black community on behalf of corporate clients. Okay, that's what Wade Herring's doing in this time frame. Joyce McGree Griggs is getting shot at because she's got intelligence training and she's a high value target.
And is a lawyer. And is
right. So this whole attacking of the candidate. Betty Jones, another mansion. I don't know it'd be that far. I mean, Wade. I said this to somebody else the other day. Wade Herring is doing a really bad John Barrow impersonation. And I say that as somebody who interned, who volunteered. I was in Statesboro for 5 years, so I did a lot of work for John Barrow's campaigns between 2007 and 2011, and I love the guy. Super smart guy. Way smarter than what his ads would let you say, but was playing the game just like everyone else does. Well, if Savannah Morning News, Adam and Brimmer, Rebecca Rolfs, you're welcome to come on and defend yourself on this program anytime. But if you haven't noticed, politics in this town have changed considerably in the last 5 years, just like they have in America considerably in the last 5 years. And you guys keep trying to apply these pre-Trump standards to politics that are just no longer applicable.
And I agree with you. I'm going to use Keisha, Alderwoman Keisha and Alderwoman Alicia, right? They're not the quietest either. And I'm okay with, I like loud. Let me tell you one thing I love. I love a woman who is confident, especially a black woman who is confident and who is not afraid to say what they got to say.
Sure.
And that's what we need more of. And the problem is, what you said about, not the problem, but the change is coming because we look at who they were running against, right? They were running against the established, poised. We don't want to rock the apple cart, but it's time to rock the apple cart. If you don't want to rock the apple cart, I need you to go home. I don't want you to do the same thing as usual. Get out here and fight and advocate. And that's the one thing I can say Joyce has over her opponent is she ain't scared to fight.
And I mean, when you're in an R plus 12 district, meaning a Republican plus 12% advantage, is the way the district is drawn. I mean, you need some fight. I mean, look, let me just say it this way. For those of you who are Democratic Party, members or candidates or staffers or consultants that watch this, listen to this. If we were going to run a corporate litigating attorney for Congress, it would be Mark Tate. It would be somebody who has paid dues in this town as a Democrat. Somebody who has taken his fruitful bearings of a corporate legal career, like Mark Tate has as a trial lawyer, suing corporations, and puts that money out in the community and in the party, right? So, like, if we were going to go this route of a high-priced falutin attorney, and that is who Mark Tate is too, by the way, and he knows it. He would claim it. He drives a $250,000 car, okay? You know what I'm saying? Like, the guy's got money, you know? There's nothing wrong with that. I don't even begrudge Wade Herring for being successful or having a successful campaign in terms of fundraising. But when you keep going out here and misconstruing people's platforms, right, saying that Joyce Marie Griggs is pro-life just because she said that she's against late-term abortions, which is where most of the country is.
Yeah.
Right? You know? Or because she said, I'm a combat veteran who has experience with weapons. I'm not looking to ban every weapon. I'm not looking to be – that's not my issue. I think is what she said 2 years ago. It's not my number one priority. Now, she's definitely talked a lot about these high-capacity weapons this year and how we need to remove them or at least raise the age to be able to obtain and keep them. You know, so to go on media and spend, I mean, they're spending thousands and thousands of dollars on local TV ads right now saying that she is pro-life and stands with Brian Kemp as a pro-gun candidate, you know? So, like, to be going on here spending this kind of money to trash one of the Democratic Party's longtime bench members, longtime players on the bench, you know, it's just foolish. It's a foolish, it's foolhardy. I personally picked up the phone and I called the campaign manager for Wade Herring's campaign last weekend. And I say that to tell people, like, I'm not saying anything on this show that I haven't already said to his people directly, right? Like, you know, you guys are screwing this up because even if you win this runoff, which is not likely, you're going to lose in the general because you're going to piss off too many black voters who will skip your race intentionally.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Archie.
Yeah, I agree. No, I want to go back. There was a comment that just, you know, popped in my head where she said, well, Griggs does not have she doesn't, I guess, have a platformer. But I guess she's trying to insinuate that Joyce doesn't really have a platform or points for what she wants to get accomplished. I actually like that. I want a candidate who goes in with a clean slate, who gets there, who then sits with the public and then develops priorities. Joyce knows what she's doing. She's a strategic person. She's military. She knows how to make strategy. But I think what I enjoy about her approach this time is she's approaching it with an open slate so that she can think about the broader issues instead of going in and saying, oh, we're going to promise you the world and give you nothing, which we often see too many times. And so I actually like that. I'm not agreeing that she does it because she does, but I think her strategy is much broader than her opponent's narrow view of looking at the platform piece.
This was a fun episode, pal. I mean, you know, Theresa Watson is somebody I've known a long time. You know, I called this episode a labor of love just because, you know, she's got a lot of experience with the Labor Council here. You know, I really hope that your side of town will get out the vote next week, pal.
Well, and this is a comment I've heard a lot of times. It's not my comment, but I want your opinion. And we've got to do this differently. The people in our labor unions, and I won't call out any particular, but our labor unions have a huge voice, and they've got to use that voice by going to the polls. They've got to. That can sway that election really, really well.
Not only that, but they need to use their voice with that money that they got. Because some of these unions, especially the ones down at the ports, got some money in those political action funds. Yeah. And that money does not seem to make its way back down here to Savannah. Always seems to leave, but never comes for our candidates. Right? You know, just saying. Well, I've talked to that leadership down on Farm Street. I've talked to them many times about this problem that they are a part of.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think, you know, with resources comes endorsements. With endorsements comes the advancement of certain issues. And when you go to the poll, you secure that. So actually, our labor
All the way
unions,
around.
especially our longshoremen, have a three-pronged approach to really advancing not only their issues, but the issues of their families. And so if they're very strategic about it, I mean, they could really set up the whole state in a way that works well for them. So,
well, I appreciate you joining me for this discussion. John is supposed to be back next week, so I'll see if he's up for a show or not. But I might call you and have you come on anyway. Just
hey, that'll be fine. That'll be fine. That'll be
we'll
fine.
talk about some of the runoffs that go on. And look, maybe I'll pop on the members group on Tuesday night and send you the link. I think I got to add you to that group so that you can get in there with us. But if you want to join us, you can go to either of these websites.
Yeah, you got
bettersavannah.org or patreon.com/bettersavannah. Click that join button. Send us a monthly donation and get some more content and stuff.
That sounds great.
All right. Well, I appreciate you joining us this week, family, and we'll talk to you guys real soon.
I appreciate our tourism community. I appreciate our hoteliers.